April 24th, 1944, 3:15 a.m. The moon hung low over the dense forests of occupied France, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. Silence wrapped the landscape like a heavy shroud, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves and the distant hum of enemy patrols. Hidden deep behind enemy lines, 3 Allied soldiers lay gravely wounded survivors of a mission gone wrong, stranded, hopeless, and expected to perish. Lieutenant Jimmy Caldwell wiped the grime and blood from his face, his breath shallow but steady despite the cold seeping into his bones. Beside him, Sergeant Robert Mills and Private First Class Henry Harris fought exhaustion, pain, and the creeping chill that threatened to claim them. Their radios were destroyed. Rescue seemed impossible, yet hope flickered from an unexpected source. A daring plan labeled insane by many. A glider rescue, silent and vulnerable, landing behind enemy lines to retrieve 3 men no one expected to live. The mission was risky, reckless even, but it was the only chance. As dawn approached, preparations were underway. Captain Mark Thompson, the glider pilot, knew the dangers. Flying in a fragile, engineless aircraft deep into hostile territory with no way to escape quickly was a gamble with lives on the line. Below, the wounded waited, unaware that extraordinary courage was about to take flight above them. This was a moment suspended between despair and hope, where bravery defied logic and changed the fate of 3 men left for dead. The forest held its breath. The glider was coming. Lieutenant James Caldwell was a seasoned paratrooper, sharp and determined, but the crash had left him wounded and weak. His leadership and calm in the face of danger had earned him respect, but now every breath was a struggle. Sergeant Robert Mills, his loyal second-in-command, was suffering from shrapnel wounds that sapped his strength and tested his will. Private Henry Harris, the youngest of the trio, bore a broken leg and exhaustion beyond measure. Together, they formed a small team, bound by training, trust, and the desperate hope for survival. Their mission had been vital. Sabotage behind enemy lines, disrupting supply routes in preparation for the coming D-Day invasion. The plan was to strike deep into occupied France, cripple German communications, and slip back safely to Allied forces. But fate turned against them. Ambushed and cut off, the team's extraction plan collapsed. Radios were destroyed, escape routes vanished, and the harsh reality settled in. They were stranded deep in enemy territory, vulnerable and alone. Captain Mark Thompson, the glider pilot assigned to the rescue, was no stranger to danger. Trained to fly silent, engineless aircraft into contested zones, his missions required precision, courage, and nerves of steel. The idea of landing in a small clearing surrounded by enemy forces to rescue 3 severely injured men tested every limit of his skill and resolve. Flying a fragile glider without engines meant that once committed, there was no turning back. The rescue operation was orchestrated under tight secrecy, with only a handful of people aware of the risks involved. Command weighed the cost carefully. Sending a glider into hostile land, vulnerable and slow, could result in disaster. Yet the lives of the 3 men hung in the balance, and leaving them behind was unthinkable. As dawn approached, every participant felt the heavy weight of the mission's stakes. The clearing was small, surrounded by dense trees and enemy patrols. The glider's fragile frame would have to withstand a rough landing. The crew would face immediate danger, and time was against them. Yet, hope was kindled by the knowledge that someone was willing to risk everything to bring them home. For Caldwell, Mills, and Harris, hope was rekindled by sheer will and the knowledge that rescue was coming. In a war defined by uncertainty and sacrifice, this act of courage stood apart, a testament to the value placed on every human life, even in the darkest of times. Captain Mark Thompson climbed into the cockpit of the CG-4 glider, his breath visible in the cold pre-dawn air. The metal frame of the aircraft was thin and fragile, a hollow shell with no engine, just wings and a pilot's skill. Every mission was a gamble. Flying silently, unpowered, into enemy territory left no room for error. Thompson knew that once released from the tow plane, he would glide like a leaf on the wind, his fate tied to the air currents in his own nerve. The tow plane's engines roared above as they climbed, dragging the glider toward the target deep inside occupied France. The clearing chosen for the landing was small, barely large enough for a rough touchdown. Surrounding it, thick forest and enemy patrols made the mission feel more like a desperate gamble than a calculated operation. Below, Lieutenant Caldwell, Sergeant Mills, and Private Harris waited in the dense undergrowth, each moment stretched thin with pain and uncertainty. Their radios were gone, their supplies low, and the sound of enemy patrols creeping closer was a constant threat. But above the whisper of the trees, the faintest hint of hope stirred as distant engines approached. The glider pilot's hands were steady on the controls despite the tension coiling in his chest. He knew the risky if the landing failed. If enemy fire found them on the ground, the men trapped below would be lost. But there was no turning back. As the glider descended, the moonlight fading with the coming dawn, the fragile craft slipped silently through the branches, touching down with a jarring thud. The landing skidded across uneven ground, bouncing against rocks and tree stumps, but held together just enough to stay intact. Thompson wasted no time. The rescue team jumped out into the cold, navigating swiftly through the trees to reach the wounded soldiers. Caldwell's face lit with relief, though pain still etched every line. Mills and Harris struggled but moved with the help of their rescuers. Loading the injured into the cramped glider was urgent. Enemy patrols were closing in, their footsteps crunching through leaves. Time was scarce, and every second counted. With the men secured, Thompson climbed back into the cockpit, his heart pounding. The tow plane awaited to hook them back into the sky. The fragile glider, heavy with passengers and damage from the rough landing, strained against the tow rope as it lifted from the forest floor. The flight back was tense and perilous. Anti-aircraft fire lit the sky in deadly flashes, and enemy fighters prowled nearby. Thompson's focus never wavered as he navigated the fragile craft through the storm of bullets and explosions. Inside the glider, Caldwell, Mills, and Harris lay silent but alive, their hope rekindled by the bravery of a pilot who risked everything. Each minute was a triumph, a step closer to safety. This rescue became more than a mission. It was a symbol of courage against impossible odds. It showed that even in the darkest moments, human spirit and sacrifice could rewrite fate. When the glider finally touched down on friendly soil, Cheer Zero, 3 men expected to perish were alive thanks to a mission many thought insane. Their survival was a testament to ingenuity, determination, and the unyielding will to save a comrade. The story of that glider rescue echoed through the ranks, inspiring others to believe that no one was truly lost if courage and hope remained. By April 23, 1944, the 3 men, Lieutenant Caldwell, Sergeant Mills, and Private Harris, had been stranded behind enemy lines for nearly 2 days. Their injuries worsened, supplies dwindled, and the risk of discovery by German patrols grew with every passing hour. Radio silence in hostile territory meant that traditional rescue efforts were impossible. Military command faced a difficult decision. The area was heavily patrolled, and sending a rescue team on foot or by vehicle was too dangerous. The only remaining option was to attempt a glider rescue on untested, dangerous plan that many considered reckless, even insane. The idea was to fly a glider silently into a tiny clearing within enemy-held forest, land, load the injured, and take off again, all under the constant threat of enemy attack. Captain Mark Thompson was chosen for this mission, experienced, calm under pressure, and skilled with glider operations. He accepted the challenge. The plan demanded absolute precision. The glider had to find the clearing at night or dawn, land on rough terrain, avoid enemy patrols, and escape quickly once the wounded were aboard. Many in the command doubted the mission's success. Gliders were fragile, lacking engines, and dependent on tow planes for movement. The terrain was unforgiving, and the enemy alert. Failure would mean the loss of pilot, crew, and the 3 soldiers they sought to save. Despite the risks, the urgency was clear. The men's survival depended on action, not inaction. The impossible idea rescuing wounded soldiers behind enemy lines by silent glider was their last hope. At first light on April 24, 1944, Captain Thompson's glider approached the forest clearing with surgical precision. The tow plane released the silent craft, which glided through the cold dawn air, wings stretched wide but powerless. Below, the terrain was jagged and unforgiving. Trees surrounded a small, uneven patch of ground barely large enough for the fragile craft to land. Enemy patrols lurked nearby, their footsteps close and threatening. Thompson's hands gripped the controls tightly. He eased the glider down, navigating with the pilot's intuition and nerves of steel. The landing was rough, skidding across rocks, narrowly avoiding tree trunks, but the craft held together. As the glider touched down, the rescue team sprang into action. Thompson, along with a small contingent, moved swiftly through the brush to reach the wounded soldiers. Caldwell's face, pale and exhausted, brightened with hope. Mills and Harris, though weakened, mustered the strength to be moved. Loading the injured into the cramped glider was a race against time. The enemy was close. Their footsteps echoed ominously. Every second counted. With the wounded secured, Thompson climbed back into the cockpit. The tow plane reattached and pulled the glider skyward, lifting it out of enemy territory under the threat of anti-aircraft fire and enemy fighters. The flight back was a harrowing ordeal. Flashes of gunfire and tracer rounds cut through the sky. Thompson navigated through the chaos, steady and focused. The fragile glider creaked and groaned under pressure, but it held. Inside, the rescued men lay silent but alive, their hope rekindled by the daring rescue. The mission was a success against all odds, a testament to courage, precision, and the unyielding human spirit. The glider touched down on friendly soil. Cheers greeted the unlikely survivors and their rescuers. The insane rescue had defied expectation and saved lives. The successful glider rescue behind enemy lines was more than a dramatic escape. It became a powerful symbol of ingenuity and bravery during World War II. Lieutenant Caldwell, Sergeant Mills, and Private Harris, once expected to perish, returned to Allied lines alive. Their survival a testament to the courage of both the rescuers and the rescued. The mission challenged conventional ideas about what was possible in war. It showed that risks deemed insane could yield incredible results when fueled by skill, determination, and an unwavering commitment to comrades. This rescue underscored the importance of innovation and boldness in life-or-death situations, pushing the boundaries of traditional military operations. Historically, the operation highlighted the critical role of glider pilots like Captain Thompson, whose silent flights into hostile territory often went unheralded but saved countless lives. The mission also emphasized the value of teamwork and trust between ground soldiers and air crews, essential components for success in the unpredictable chaos of war. The story contributed to evolving rescue tactics, influencing how future missions were planned to retrieve isolated personnel from dangerous environments. It remains a reminder of how human ingenuity and bravery can prevail against overwhelming odds. Years after the war, the story of the glider rescue continued to inspire those who heard it. For Lieutenant Caldwell, Sergeant Mills, and Private Harris, survival was more than just a physical. Escape was a second chance at life, a testament to the power of hope and resilience. Captain Thompson's daring flight became emblematic of the unseen heroism of glider pilots, those who flew without engines, silently facing enemy fire in unpredictable terrain. Their sacrifices often remained in the shadows, but this rescue shone a light on their critical contributions. This story reminds us that in war, moments of compassion and courage can emerge amidst destruction and fear. It reveals the human heart beneath the harshness of conflicted desire to save, to protect, and to believe in the impossible. Today, the rescue stands as a powerful legacy of teamwork, bravery, and innovation. It honors the men who risked everything to save their comrades, and the spirit of those who refuse to give up, no matter the odds. This is the history of World War II. Whoever oppresses the innocent is an oppressor. Neither the earth belongs to this oppressor, nor does the sky belong to him. We stand now and forever with the oppressed. This is WWII Files. See you in the next one.